Welcome back to AbetterSociety.info. This seventh video is the third in a series dealing with what we're calling the hunter-gatherer societal pattern. Now, we probably lost some people during the sixth video. The information included in it was very much different from what I'm sure they're used to if they have in their mind what we're calling the noble savage framework of thinking. This concept, this way of thinking came out of the 18th century with Rousseau and other authors, and it clings to the idea that the hunter-gatherer people were pure folks who lived in harmony with nature, and they were all good, and what happened to the world was that they all became corrupted by whatever the modern world is. And some people cling to the idea that we would all be better if we just all went back to being hunter-gatherers. Well, all of that is well and good if you like to think about things that make you feel good. But if we're going to be making the future better, we also have to have a clear understanding of how our past was as humans and also our current as is. Now, as an organizational consultant for government agencies and corporations, nonprofits, I've seen groups of people who I worked with come together and really be successful at realigning their organization in order to deal with the current reality of their world. And that was always done on the basis of having a clear picture of their past and a clear picture of their present. And you're not going to be really moving forward if you're holding in your mind images of your past that are really not accurate or not related to the world as it is today. I've worked with corporations that people in them would cling to the old ways of doing things, and they would cling to myths about what happened in the old days or myths about what's going on today, and they just couldn't make the transition from their current reality to improve themselves. And I've seen corporations like that I worked with just go down the hill. I mean, often big corporations don't get bankrupt, but they often do get sold off to someone else, or they get split up into pieces. They don't continue as an organized entity. And often the reason for that is that they just can't deal with today's world. They can't deal with the realities of what's going on around them. They're clinging to images of the past that are more myth than reality. So if we're going to talk about hunter-gatherers and their societal patterns, and understand that these societal patterns continue in our world today, then we're going to have to see them as they really were and as they really are today. So that's a lot of what this series about these folks is all about. And when we think about hunter-gatherers, I mean, as I said in the other video, the most important factor are resources. And so you have to understand that they want to stay alive. And everything that they get to stay alive, for shelter, weapons, anything, just comes raw from nature. And they whatever land they live on is going to have an impact on how well they live. And there gets to be an issue with these people as to us and everybody else. That there is our group. And when we think about Abraham Maslow's three first levels of need, survival, safety, belonging to a group becomes very, very important. Because if you're not in a group, you have fewer people to protect you against the evils of the world. I mean, in these people's lives, death was close at hand. I mean, they had to deal with the lack of food, starving to death, dehydration, weather, earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, attacked by wild animals. I mean, any of these would be challenges to a people who have no agriculture, they have no animal husbandry, and they have only very limited technologies to take advantage of the natural resources that are there. And so the group becomes a very important concept to them. So one of the patterns that we see in these societies is that each group is very closely defined, very specifically defined. That you're a member of this group and you live this way. And everything that these people would manufacture in a group would be different from what would be made by other groups. Everything that they made in terms of their clothing, their weapons, their shelter, if they were up to making pottery, anything of that nature, would be specifically identified with our group. I mean, if 10,000 years ago you could go through part of America, what is today America, and walk through these tribal areas, you would see one group of people, and everything about them would be specifically designed to say, this is us, and you're somebody else. Because that's how they could tell who could benefit from our resources. I mean, they would go around and mark areas in different ways to say that this belongs to our tribe. Marks on the trees was one way of doing that. And so if you saw a person out in your territory, then you needed to have a way of identifying, well, is that part of our group or is that an enemy? Because that's the way it was defined. You're either our group or you're a member of the enemy. Because enemies are people who come and try to take our resources. So that's why in societies like this, there's hundreds of ways that they identified themselves to a particular group. The clothing designs, they would have tattoos, they would mark their bodies in various different ways, many different ways. Wear particular jewelry that would identify them with this group of people. So all of the things that we associate with identification of a cultural group is a mechanism by which they identify us and them. So that they would know who can use our resources. And if you don't look that way, if you don't have this bodily adornment in terms of clothing and weapons and everything, then that's how they would know that, okay, that guy over there, he's taking some of our resources and he's the enemy, and we're going to have to go kill him because these resources are for our people. And so that's how that all worked. I mean, if you have read anything or seen videos about native type people, you see these characteristics of identification of us and our group. And so that would be the purpose of why they did that. So that they could say, these are our resources and they're only for the people who wear this kind of adornment. It's only for the people in our group. And so that's how that mechanism would work. And there were other mechanisms that were related to that we'll discuss in other videos. So I guess time is running out, and I'll close this off right now, and I'll talk with you later.